bring us, I'll bring us on to Facebook, and then I'll tell you how many, let's see, I'll find how many suggestions we have. I'll give you the number, and then you just pick a number, and
Okay.
then that'll correspond to the suggestion. I'll tell you the suggestion, and then we'll just boom, we'll go.
Okay. Sounds good.
And it's midnight there, right?
It is. It is.
Wow. Well,
But
thanks for joining me so late or early.
no, but it's actually nice because tomorrow is Saturday and I actually have an off from work.
Okay.
So I can sleep late if I want to and it won't bother me.
Well, perfect. Let's see. We've got one. Let's see. I'll tell you how many we got. We got one, two. Pick a number 1 to 39.
Wow, that's a lot of suggestions.
A lot of suggestions.
Yeah. Okay, how about we go with number 29?
Oh,
I know that's a weird number, but
well, does it have any significance for you, or is that just the number that popped into your head?
it's just a number that I wanted to go with 39, but then I thought, no, I should pick like something not at the ends. So then I thought 29.
I like your thought process. It's like, not at the end, but close to the end.
Yeah. It somehow seems fair to not pick like the edges.
Right? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm really surprised, but I get it that a lot of people they don't ask number one. It's always like, well, I don't want to pick the first one. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, whatever. Let's see, our suggestion comes from Michael, and the suggestion, whatever this means to us, is telephone cross line. Telephone cross line.
All right.
Thanks, Michael.
Let's see. And I mean, thank you. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't walked into this chat room, because like honestly, I haven't spoken to another human being in 2 years and it's really getting on my nerves.
Wow, 2 years?
Yeah. It's strange here at the research station. We don't really have a lot of time to talk to people, and you know what, I'm just so glad that it was you, because I mean, who knew that you also love Spider-Man so much?
You talk about going crazy. I was going crazy because I couldn't talk to anybody about my views on Spider-Man. I mean, I'm, as far as the Spider-Verse goes, I mean, the fact that there are multiple spider people living in multiple universes, like that just opened up everything for me.
Exactly, right? And it's just the best way to talk about like the multiverse theory to kids. And
Yes.
like it's just people don't understand the importance of comics.
Thank you. They are literature. I feel like the artists who create any of those comic books can be compared to William Shakespeare, can be compared to any author that you want to put out there, because they are telling stories. That is the modern day novel. You okay?
No, I just have to take in a puff of oxygen every once in a while.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, do it. I don't want to disrupt what your
No,
routine is.
you're not disrupting anything. You're not disrupting anything, Richard. It's just you have no idea how good it is to talk to somebody about Spider-Man of all things. Because like the only thing that I have been doing is just taking some of these oxygen and monitoring these exotic species outside.
Yeah.
And I almost saw a spider the other day, and I was tempted to let it bite me because I'm just such a big fan.
Why? Can I ask you, why didn't you?
Because I realized that that spider ran away.
Oh, so you would have.
I
The spider
would.
was chicken. Maybe it was spider chicken. Maybe in its universe, it's a spider. It's a superhero, but it runs away from a lot of things.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Richard. I cut you off. You were telling me about your mother and all the difficulties that you've been facing. And I'm sorry, I just took you off track with the Spider-Man discussion.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I'm facing my own Spider-Man dilemma, and I'm living in a comic book universe myself. So that this kind of dovetails into what I was talking about. And I feel like I'm like him. I have a great power, and there's a great responsibility, and
I
I'm
know, I
I'm
know.
I might be done. I'm kind of going through a crisis of conscience right now. I'll be honest.
But you remember, right? You remember what Spider-Man always says.
Yeah, with great power
You,
comes great responsibilities. Well, no, that's what his uncle said to him.
and then he keeps repeating that all the
And he
time.
repeats it a ton. Yeah. What were you going to say? He repeats it a lot.
No, I was just gonna say that, you know, he also says that family is really important. I mean, it's not one of the things that's talked about a lot, but come on.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It is so important. It's so important. You want to protect them, and you want to make sure they're okay. And right now I'm like, do I go back and take care of my dad? Or do I still focus on my career? And I think to myself, what would Spider-Man do? And I think, well, Spider-Man would probably go take care of his dad, but then something would stop him from taking care of his dad. And maybe this is it for me. Maybe this is my Doc Ock.
You
Maybe
know,
this
you
is
know, you know what I just realized?
what?
Am I the evil scientist in your story? Am I the evil scientist who's telling you to abandon your dad and your mother and go pursue? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be this gleeful about it, but I just find it's
Laugh for me. Like laugh out like a belly laugh. Let me hear your laugh. Like you're
yeah, I'm
oh,
sorry.
well, at first I was like, no, that's not an evil laugh. But then when you went back, I was like, that could be. I mean, that sounds like a pretty evil laugh right there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have other people around me, so I don't need to ever censor my laugh or my snorts or anything else. And the only things I see outside are hyenas and all these exotic animals. So I guess that sort of creeps into my personality a little bit.
And you're bored, like you're ready to go home. You don't want to stay up there anymore.
You know what I really, really crave? I mean, I want
Can I
just
guess? Can I guess?
sure.
Okay. So what do you really, knowing you, what do you crave? Well, okay. The first thing I'm going to say is the hustle and bustle of public transportation. I think that's something but I don't know if that's what you were going to say, but I think you miss it a little bit, like a little bit.
I really want to get back into the world. And when you're in a public transport and there's just so many people and everybody is just like super close to each other.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I would miss that, but turns out I do.
Is that the thing you miss the most? Is that what you're going to say? Or did I just trigger something that you're like, yeah, that's true, but that's not the thing?
No, it is. I
Okay.
mean, people is the thing. And I
People.
also was going to say that the thing that I miss the most is like, just traveling in the subway.
Right.
Just running down trying to catch that last train, and you have adrenaline rushing because you don't know whether you're going to make it or not, and you have a sandwich in your hand and you want to finish it because there's no food allowed on the subway. And
Right.
there are all these rules that people just don't even think about.
And you're like, subconsciously, you're like, this is living.
Yeah.
This is living. And now you've probably cycled through a whole bunch of thoughts being on your own that you're like, you're ready to have more stimulation around you.
Yeah, I know. I mean, honestly, I used to think that people were all miserable little things and I should just stay away from everybody.
Yeah.
and I should not talk to anybody and just focus on all the things that I really want to do. But being 2 years by myself has taught me that the things I really want to do are not the same as what I thought I wanted to do.
You're a moral of a story like a comic book.
Oh my God.
You've reached that point. This is the end of your comic book right here. You know what you want. You want to go home.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't think you should leave your dad and mom.
Did we just solve two problems at once? Did we just solve yours and mine, or maybe not even solve, but just come to the decision just now?
This is the best cross connection I've seen in my life.
Ever, right? Is it just me? I'm like, this is the best ever.
I know. I'm just.
It's meant to be. That's the thing. It's meant to be. That's the, like, there are so many signs that happen, and it's like, nope, I can keep pushing, or I can be like, nope, this is meant. This is what it.
I mean, what were the chances? I go online for 5 minutes, and if I don't connect to another computer, my connection dies. And I so happen to connect to you, who also knows about Spider-Man and has a dilemma that I can solve. And you went into the subway last night.
Yeah. It's not a coincidence. Everything. Oh my God. Everything's connected like a spider web. Wow. With great power does come great responsibility.
That reminds me, I need to go feed the tarantulas.
I mean, it's time.
It's time.
Hey, it's good talking with you.
Yeah. Have a good life. I don't know if I'll ever, I don't even know if Richard's your real name, but have a good life, Richard.
Well, you want to know what my real name is?
Yeah.
It's Scene.
You know, when you went off, I was going to go off.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it felt like to me, it's like one of those things. It's like, of course, like you're on that same, you can get on the same wavelength with somebody, ever never having known them, but you could still find that connection there.
Yeah. And I honestly felt like I knew that had to be like the end of the scene as well.
Totally.
And I'm just like, these, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like these scenes are the best ones, where the people, everybody who's performing on stage are on exactly the right wavelength, where, they know exactly where the scene's going to end. And
somebody described it once to me, and I really dug this analogy. It's like, you're all playing the same song, but different instruments. So it's not that like you're bringing your stuff to it, but you're going in the same direction together.
Yeah. And just having recognized that crescendo, and knowing to stop there, and having to recognize that energy, I guess.
Yes. Well, that's a hard thing to do, to be like, you have to recognize you're not pushing for it to end, but that's the end. You're like, that's the same with the show, right? Or a scene, you're like, that's the edit, that's the end point. Like, everybody feels it because you're all headed the same way.
And that's the thing, right? Like, you can't predict it, and it's not like, if you keep looking for it, then I don't think that one finds it.
No.
But it just when it comes naturally is the only time it happens organically.
I mean, isn't that why we still do it? We're still doing it for those moments, for these moments of like, that's it. We discovered it. It just came out. That's when the magic really happens.
Yeah, and it is really strange because in a way, it is our first call as well, and we were sort of similar to our characters, even though we might have different, like we were not those characters, but we
Right.
have similar situations going along as well.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
I feel like I was taught when I got really introduced to long form, that one of the teachers I had said, "Oh, the characters are like versions of you. They're like kind of jackets you put on, like light jackets, and you don't have to do these big over the top characters that you can't sustain." It's like to try to do a big character for
Mhm.
10 minutes is going to be very tiring. But if you can do kind of heightened versions of yourself, or make strong emotional choices at something bigger
Mhm.
than what you would comfortably do in real life, like making these bigger reactions, I think it plays out. And we play characters all the time in our lives, in our regular lives off stage. I'm a different person with my family than I am with somebody I know, than a friend. You're all these different characters throughout life.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like I remember also even like in a clowning workshop, it was a
Mm,
very similar thing that even when you're creating caricatures, you do not want to create a caricature that is unsustainable for you. So a way to organically create one is to try and take your own walk and
mm.
try to modify it and make it bigger, and then you have a caricature that you can actually sustain,
Yes,
right?
yes. You're not like, what was that voice? What was that? Like, it's not coming from up here, it's coming from your body. And I feel those
Yeah.
are the easier ones to do, is like exaggerate a physicality or exaggerate an emotion or something like that. That's easier to do than like, okay, what voice am I? Anything that comes from like here up is harder because you're trying to remember it, and it's not as deep of a character. You might be able to sustain it for like a 3-minute scene or a short form scene, but to sustain it for a long period of time, oof, it's hard.
Yeah. And so we used to do these really long forms, which could go up to 40 minutes to an hour. And so that was like, it was the same thing because uh, sometimes, we would play different characters.
Mm,
And then because it's improv, you have no props, you have nothing else. So the only way the audience recognizes that it's a different character is because of like a particular walk that you have, or the way you talk, or the things like that. And so then you have to be really careful about sculpting those, because once you've identified that, you can't really go back. Like that's your defining feature,
yes.
and you have to commit to that for 40 minutes.
You don't you feel like it takes like one or two times of failing at that to learn, right? You're like, oh
Yeah.
man, I didn't do it that last show. What do I have to do to ensure the next time I'm able
Yeah.
to get it?
Yeah, and then like the worst, well, it's not worst, it's actually a really amazing experience, but it's the hardest for me, which is if I end up taking on a character. So taking on a character that is a little, a little sad and a
Yeah.
little whatever, a little heavy hearted, because I feel like then you have to carry that heavy heartedness for 40 minutes, and that really takes a toll eventually.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times too, eventually you see these characters make the choice to like, oh, I'm gonna change, because the actor can't do it for long. So they're like, I have to change because I can't physically carry that emotion. I can't bring that any farther because
Yeah.
it's weighing me down so much.
Yeah, no, so there was this one time, I'm sorry, I'm just so excited to talk about this for, like, because there was this one time we did this scene, and there was my partner, and we were good friends, but in the scene we hated each other.
Right.
And then having sustained that for so long, it took me like a day or two to get back to like a normal.
I know. And you're like, hey, I don't hate you, but we just spent it was an insane, intensive time. I gotta let it go. It's gonna take a bit to wash away from me because I'm still in that emotional state.
Yeah, like I'm so sorry, but I really want to throw this coffee at you, but I don't really hate you.
Well, it is a thing of like Because you're fully invested. You're fully emotionally invested. You buy into the make-believe. And that's what we're trying to do is like, can you buy into that make-believe and then go, now I know I need X amount of time to decompress. We've done those shows, right? Where it's like, oh my God, don't talk to me for an hour after the show because or 2 hours, I'm coming down. I got to process. I got to decompress. I just need to be alone. And then I can come back into the real world.
Yeah. I totally know what you're talking about. And it's just, oh man, I miss it so much. I miss those physical shows. And I mean, I love the idea of having the opportunity to improvise with people from all over the world, but I really miss the physical stage.
Of course. I mean, none of us got into improv in the beginning and said, man, I hope one day this goes online. I hope one day we separate and we're not near each other. You know what make this form great is if we were separated by a long distance and we could go through a computer. But it is something that's like, oh, what a cool, when things get back to familiar and we're able to go on stage. It's like, oh, what a cool now opportunity to add that to where it's like, oh, we can do the stage stuff. And if we wanted to, hey, let's connect and do a virtual scene and have both of the worlds.
You know what I'm worried about? Like I remember that there was a time 2 years ago where we used to have scenes where people are just like sitting really close to each other. And for instance, you're stuck in a cave or some situation for which you're like doing the whole scene stuck really close together. And I'm really worried that I am going to be really uncomfortable if I have to do a scene like that now.
Yeah, well, of course. I think we just accept the fact that it's going to be a little uncomfortable at first.
Yeah.
I think it just is going to be that way. And then eventually, I feel, maybe this is my optimistic side. I do feel like we will break through that fairly quickly. But I do think early on, you're going to have so many thoughts of like being close to somebody. My thought's going to be like, are you vaccinated? You say you are, but are you? Like even those things are going to be running through our head. But I think eventually after, like with virtual, it took me 3 kind of shows to go, okay, I get the hang of it. I think the same thing's going to happen. I think it's going to be a couple shows live where you go, okay, I'm going to shift. Now I feel comfortable here. And then pretty soon, I think we're going to get back to that's going to be okay. But I think it is going to be a little bit of a transition for sure.
Yeah, that is true.
How did you get into improv? How did you get started?
So essentially what happened was that we were a bunch of PhD students and we used to love doing theater. But doing a full production took a very long time in rehearsals and in terms of costume design and writing the script and directing and all of that. So there were a bunch of us who did not have that kind of time. But we really wanted to still continue doing something in theater. So we just casually started to meet once a week to try and explore this thing where you do theater on the spot. And then, eventually we just sort of taught ourselves by looking at YouTube videos and reading books. And if one of us went to a show, then we would try to, try and see what works out. But the good thing that we really had going for us was the fact that since we were in an institute, my group is called Stage Fright. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier.
So great. That's so great.
So since we were in an institute, every time we tried to put up a show, we would have a built-in audience of at least 20 people turning up.
Wait, for each show?
For each show, yeah. We've done shows for over 300 people.
I grew up in Chicago. I trained in Chicago. People are like, oh, Chicago, the mecca of improv. It's like, man, most groups don't have 20 people at their shows there. So the fact you're like, oh, we have 20 is great.
To be fair, all of our shows were free and in the institute. So most people would just like sort of come there as a way to unwind and, just have fun, watch their friends perform.
Wow. So then, I mean, that's amazing. You're like, we want to still do this. What are our opportunities? Well, we can look on YouTube. Hey, I saw this show and this thing happened. Let's try it. And then get up and actually do it without having to do it a certain way, which happens a lot in the States where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're doing a show for this theater. You got to do it that way, which in one way I get, but in another way, that's kind of counter to what we're trying to do, which is like be creative, use your imagination and let it flow where it's going to go.
I mean, to be fair, we did really bad improv for a while.
So do a lot of groups do. That's how you learn.
Yeah. But no, it was a lot of fun teaching each other and
Yeah.
trying to learn. And then we try to incorporate other elements. So because we had theater training, we try to bring that into our shows. Some of us were dancers, like classically trained, so we try to bring in like a lot of physicality and movement into our shows. And and then like the good thing was, because we had a nice audience, we could do many shows and try and sort of explore a whole bunch of things.
Yeah. I mean, that is so cool also to bring those other elements in and to be like, oh, you've got a background in dancing. Let's bring some movement in, or like, let's try that. Like that mindset of being open and saying like, I don't know, let's give it a shot. An audience will forgive whatever quality we think it is. They're blown away you're up there, right? They're like, I can't. So even when we think it's bad, it's still pretty good to an audience because they are like, I can't believe you have no script, you don't have anything up there. But then to add those elements of like, we're not just going to talk, but we're also going to add some movement, or we're going to work on this and add emotion, or whatever it is. And that gets back to us about like, play the same song, but use your instrument to play it.
Yeah, and then like I think the one thing that was really helpful was like a lot of people were very kind and very generous with their time, like would come, and there were a lot of people from ICB and that they invited. They would often be very generous and come and perform with us, teach us, jam with us, and that was a very fun thing to do as well.
Improv Comedy Bangalore is who you're talking about when
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's amazing what this has done for the global improv ecosystem. Is like there are thriving communities all over the world, and that's the silver lining to me of what we're going through as a globe, is as a global community. Is the silver lining is we're able to connect with people and say, wow, look at all the way things are being done throughout the world. And, oh, you play this style. Oh, cool. I get to see that. Or you bring that into it. And I guess it was always available to us, but we just never took advantage of it because we didn't see the need for it. Now we do.
No, and also like it was available in the sense that if you are traveling to another part of the world, you get to see it, but not while sitting at the comfort of your home.
Right. I'll be honest. I love it. I love just like I can turn off my computer, go to my bed or go downstairs to eat, and then I come back on and turn it on. I love that opportunity. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty great.
Yeah. How did you get into improv?
My parents gave me classes as a Christmas present one year. They're like, we think you'd like this. And I had never heard of it. I mean, I knew of it, but it was not really big. And it was just, I was like, oh, I like being creative. I liked being in plays when I was younger. I liked making my friends laugh. I dug that. And then I took classes. I was like, oh, this is just like hanging out with friends. We've been doing this for a while where you're just with friends and you're like, you play different characters and you do bits and stuff. So it transitioned for me pretty easily. And I love team sports too. I was an athlete. So like the ensemble aspect was what drew me to it. Honestly, it was like, oh, cool. I don't have to be the dude. I can be part of a group. Awesome. So for me, that ensemble feeling is what really made it strong and why I wanted to do it. I never wanted to do stand-up or anything like that because I didn't want to be up there by myself. I liked being part of a group. That was what I love. So I never thought it would turn into this, but it just one day turned into another. And then it's like, wow, it's this much later and I'm still loving doing it.
Yeah. and what boggles my mind is the fact that just that one small decision of like, oh, hey, I like doing this thing. I'm going to continue doing this thing, translates into like having friends all over the world.
Yes. Right. I mean, that you're right. It's like that ripple. You're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then it's like, oh my God, people now globally. And it blows my mind. I'm so thankful because it's like, wow, I have friends all throughout the world and it's all because of improv.
Yeah, I know. I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. If people want to connect with you, if they want to like, check out shows you're doing or anything like that, or talk to you more about it, what's the best way?
I guess just find me on Facebook or Instagram. My Instagram handle is storytelling ape.
Nice.
Yeah, and right now, so I'm kind of like a freelance improviser at the moment because I'm not associated with the team. The team that I was part of, I have sort of moved away from the institute now. So I don't like routinely perform with them. So I just perform with anybody that
So
is interested.
you're available to play.
Yep, I'm available to play. And I've also been doing this thing with Arjun from ICP. And we do this thing called the 3 a.m. show. We've not done a show in a while, but we want to get back to it. But essentially, it's about looking at a painting and just sort of making up a history for it on the go.
I love it. I've seen it. That's how I knew who you were. I've watched those. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah, no, so that was another fun format that both of us came up with. And honestly, it wasn't just us, actually. It was a late night chat in the WhatsApp group where everybody was just yes-anding each other. And, it just so happened because, like, for us, my name is Aparna Agarwal, which is AA, and his name is Arjun Mehra, which is AM. And so somebody made that pun that it's the 3 a.m. And then we were like, oh, we should do a 3 a.m. show.
The best shows and bits are when somebody offhandedly says something and then you're like, we're going to do it. Like, I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was fun.
Well, whether it's in person, live, virtually, whatever it is, I can't wait to play with you again. Thank you so much for taking time out of your now early morning to do this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling me. It's so much fun. It was so much fun to do this thing.
We will talk soon.
All right. See ya.
Bye.